Commitment, folks. San Luis Obispo to Boston. They just cleared the streets. The snow is above the buses. Okay, it's above the buses. Okay, and I couldn't have been happier. And off I went. So I've been on an activist path for 28 years. Nobody wanted to do it. They weren't stupid enough to make that move. All right, totally understandable. Activists on the UFO issue? Are you kidding? Are you out of your mind? But I had an idea, registered as a lobbyist, and nobody had ever done that. I can't imagine why. There's no pay, you'll be ridiculed. But nevertheless, I did it anyway, and I was the very first person to do it. And I'm in Washington, D.C., where my family has been living off and on for years. I had a free attic, and I put that in. The Washington Post saw it, because they check them all, and they're checking this, Saudi Arabia, an oil company, energy company, extraterrestrial presence in sequestered technology. Who the hell is this? We got to talk to him. So they sent out a reporter for a very lengthy interview. Excellent. It was a good. I have it. I should start sharing that. One of the reasons I haven't shared it is they took a huge photo. So on the business front page of the Washington Post, the number 2 page in the paper back then. Remember when there was papers? Yeah. It's like this. Okay, big story, and it's a photo of me. One of the worst I've ever taken in my life. I may start sharing it now because what difference does it make, right? And so that gave me the cred, and off I go. So, and I was talking to Lisa about this at the wonderful breakfast that she provided, that I can put this. Well, I'll skip over that. So essentially, I start the activist path. I have no idea where it's going to go, but as I get into it, deeper and deeper and deeper into it, the idea of extraterrestrials here, which I knew when I was like 17, 16, I was reading the magazine and stuff, it was obvious, it was true, it was common sense, became less important than the connection to it and what else was going on in the world. That giant ocean wave is just kind of moving on. And I began to realize and see more clearly that we were in a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble. Not just America, the whole planet. I'm not going to get into environmental stuff. I'm simply saying that it was pretty clear that things are not good. Not good at all. And I became very much involved in studying the nuclear weapons issue, which there are books on it. There are a lot of them. And they're not good. It's all bad. I got into that. And then I started to look at the ET, what they're doing, the presence. I started, obviously, reading about a lot of the contactee reports. And they began to see a connection. And then there was the tie-in to the nukes. After a few years in, I realized, wait a minute, this nuke thing is really key. I learned about, of course, eventually the Maelstrom and mining cases, the shutdowns and so forth. I knew about Roswell, and you start looking at it more and more, and you begin to realize that there is a direct connection between the ET presence and nukes. They've been moving forward in time like a strain of DNA spiraling forward to the present. They're all connected. And once you get there, suddenly it gets very interesting. And at some point you realize, and of course everything that had happened since, I entered the field in 1996, has not decreased my concern for this planet and the country. It's only gotten worse and worse and worse. Now I'm not going to pound on that today, but I think you know what I'm talking about. We are dancing on the edge of the volcano. Things could go like this. We have created a massive problem by not taking care of this or that or whatever and hoping it'll all work out. Well, that's not the way it is. The planet's the same size. Nature and physics have no care about our politics. And by the way, since I mentioned that, be assured, there's nothing I'm going to say today that is partisan. Nothing. If I say anything and you're thinking, that's partisan, it's not partisan. Okay? I have been that way for 29 years. There is no issue in the world less partisan than this issue. It transcends religion and politics and finances. It's almost impossible to particize it, but you might be able to if you really work at it. But the fact is that we're not doing that. And that is probably the most important thing about this, right? Because in a world that is still dominated on one side by the Western duality, the curse of duality and binaryism, right? Not so much in Asia, kind of Russia's there. And Russia's not really Asia, it's kind of Russia. I'll put them in the West. It's Europe, what can I say? What is binary? Simple. In a Western thought, everything's one or the other. It's either good or it's evil. It's either left or it's right. It's either red or it's blue. And it goes on and on and on and on. And once you got that, you got something to fight about. You got something to get pissed about. You got somebody to blame stuff on it. The Asians are not like that. The Asian religions are not like that. But we are. And it is a curse, right? It is an absolute curse. It has led to, as of mid-1980s, stockpiles of 86,000 nuclear weapons in the hands of 9 nations. I think it's still 9 nations. 86,000. And so we realized that's too many, right? And we don't need that many, so let's save some money, let's cut back. And so they managed to cut back through a great deal of effort, and they got it down to about 22,000. And they're feeling very good about that. Haven't talked about it, haven't had any treaties, haven't had anything. They just sort of said at 22, that's good enough. It's been that way for years, as we've gotten closer and closer to nuclear war. And the weapons have been advanced. By the way, right now we are replacing our ICBMs with new, modern ICBMs. It's going to cost a fortune. Going to take the old ones out, the ones that Bob, maybe the ones that Bob you were dealing with, or another, and they're going to replace them with even better ones. So again, ICBM, Intercontinental Ballistic Missile. They're replacing it with better upgrades. They're upgrading it with new missiles. So they're going to take the other one out, and I assume they'll put it in the landfill, and then they'll put the new one in, and it's faster, better, whatever the hell. That's going on. Hypersonic missiles and so forth and so forth. So this binary thing has led to that. It's us against them, even in our own society. It's us against them in the other world, outside. And so all of this is in my head as we're moving forward. And I came to the conclusion, which many of my colleagues have, like Nancy and others, far more intellectually than I, that there's only one way out of this. I don't want to be pessimistic, particularly if you have children. Sorry, I don't have any, right? There's only one way out of this. We're not going to negotiate our way out. We're not going to pray our way out. We're not going to dance our way out. Something huge has to happen. Something so profound that it affects the worldview of all 8 billion people to one degree or another, that gives them another perspective that's definitely not binary, really, so that we can maybe go places we couldn't go. And what is big enough for that? Well, you all know what I'm talking about. It is disclosure, capital D. It's the formal confirmation of ET presence by the heads of state of nations. It is a term I came up with in 2001. All right, small d disclosure been around, still is. It's all been going on. Small d disclosure keeps happening, but capital D disclosure, I own that. I got a trademark. I got it wrapped up, folks. Why is it important? Because it's not a process. It is an event. It is the confirmation by the heads of state of nations, which opens the doors, really gets things out, and opens the doors, obviously, for a global interaction with them together. Their politics is probably neutral, not a problem there. They say they're not gods. That's what they tell the contactees. That's good. And so that's a big deal. It's only the biggest event in human history. Just that. That's what it is. Biggest news story all the time. Disclosure. As Danny said, much more eloquently than I, because he has 3 more degrees from Harvard than I do. Not any, but I do have a degree from a small college in Florida that changed its name shortly after I left. So our survival literally hangs on getting this done. Now, some people don't believe that. I get it, it's all right. But even some of the wealthiest people in the world are kind of concerned. You want to know how I know that? They've driven the price of real estate in New Zealand up to the roof, okay? They're buying every heavy-duty house out there, and then they're building underground bunkers. They're spending millions on this. They got private planes on immediate notice. Call the pilot, we're out of here. Why are they doing that? Because they kind of know, right? And is going to New Zealand and living in a nice house with a bunker going to save them? No, it's not. They'll get a little bit of time, but it'll be bad. And so, wow. So, what are the odds that somebody, through the first 49 years, is just wandering the desert like a lost soul, suddenly getting into this and then finally realizing, my God, this is the biggest thing ever. This is something that could save us. That's hubris, unbelievable hubris. What activist says that? Oh, look, the issue we're doing, get this solved, you know? It's like you can get the ocean, down a little bit, get the temperature down a little bit, cool it off a little bit, right? Everything will be saved. No, it won't. Right? There's all these other things. They're all important. They're all good. But this is seminal. So guess what? You get into this, you will never leave it. You stay until the absolute end. You do it if you're living, if you're pushing a shopping cart up and down the street, right? You got some books in there, you got a little podcast thing, you do whatever you have to do. You never walk away from this, which is why some of my colleagues, like Stanton Friedman tried to retire. He'd been at it for 45 years, I think. It didn't work. He starts giving lectures again. He gives one, I think it was, I don't know, it might have been Pennsylvania or something. He's on his way back to Canada, gets in the airport, has a heart attack right there, dead. They have defibrillators in those airports, but apparently that wasn't enough. So that was it. Roger Lear was still working on this until the day he died, had a heart attack in his doctor's office. And I can go on. On my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, I'm sure all of you know about this, but anyway, one of the things I have up there is a print media archive, not print media, an in memoriam section. It's under projects ongoing. It's the in memoriam where I have a photo and the name, the dates, and of course a link to a lot of information about the person. And I'm up to about 85. I've picked people that I felt had an impact on the subject, and so they're all kind of listed there. We've lost these people, right, all the way down, and I add them every time it's appropriate. One of the reasons that we created the HDA, and by the way, the most important thing that happened today was not me blathering. You can go to YouTube, you can watch me blather for days. The most important thing that happened today was the introductions that took place before we started. That was the most important thing. HDA was created at the suggestion of Dan Harari. I instantly said absolutely, to be a pure nonprofit networking organization. All right, that's it. It doesn't get a piece of the action. It's not writing screenplays, right? An individual could, but the HDA is, no, it's nothing but a networking organization. To do what? To bring people in the UAP field. There's a broad spectrum there of stuff. I call them the citizen, research, activists, journalists, documentaries, and contactees, right? With the content creating industry, which we call Hollywood. Why not? Right? And because Dan's in Hollywood, it works. And plus it's a great name. Makes for a good logo too. All those people that are doing all that stuff, and there's so much we know what you do, right? To bring them together so that they can find each other, right? And if they find each other, things will happen. So what? Things are already happening. Not exactly, all right? What's happening, and by the way, another reason it's so important is having been in this field, there are some absolutely brilliant people dealing as a public person in this issue. In research and activism, brilliant people, okay? And you say, okay, great. Well, why have they gotten awards? Have I heard of them? Have they got honorary degrees? Presidential Medal of Freedom? No, they didn't get any of that. Why? Because it's embargoed, stigmatized. A government process that's all crap and you're an idiot. That doesn't help. It's not good in your resume. So no. But in the film industry, let's be clear, some of the most brilliant people on the planet are in the film industry. Up and down the line, from special effects, television, streaming, production, directors, actors, the whole 9 yards. Absolutely brilliant. It is the art form of our time. It is the ultimate art form as far as I'm concerned. And it only gets more sophisticated. These people are geniuses. And so when I hear people kind of demeaning them, it's just the actress, he didn't know anything, or the person, idiot. No. Some of the smartest people going. If they had gone into physics, hey, Nobel Prizes. And so we got two groups of incredibly smart people, talented people, that can't get together. Why? Because the issue is embargoed and stigmatized. Now that's improving, but for most of the last 70 years, that's not the case. And so my colleagues had to make their own docs, had to write their own books. Well, that's natural, but they couldn't really sell many of them, right? Everything that's kind of out of their back pocket, get it done, form an organization, charge a little dues, MUFON, NICAP, whatever. The government would chop it up, but they kept going relentlessly. So they could not get with that other group, right? Because that other group, the content people, and I'm particularly referring to the big shots, the big producers, the people who make the big films, there was kind of an arrangement. Now, it's not on paper. It's not, I think it may never be proven, understood. It's okay, it's not a big deal. But here's the arrangement. Because logically, common sense, I think I'm right about this, you can disagree. You want to make movies about extraterrestrials? Go at it. They've made about 600, okay? These films are some of the highest grossing of all time. $1 billion, $1.5 billion, $2 billion, $2.5 billion. I've actually, 10 years ago, I kind of chronicled them, but now it's up to about 600. The number is massive. When you got your movie ticket sales, you've got your television rights, you've got product sales, licensing, a whole couple of $100 billion that the film industry is made off of fictional extraterrestrials. I'm not upset. Those films have done more to let everybody in the world, because those films go all around the world, as you know about this ET thing, right? Fictional, but that's safe, but it's good, that's good. But in all of the time that I have been alive, and I've watched, by the way, almost all 600 of those movies, and a bunch more. That's what it was, either that or read the great books. That was out of the question. And so, in all of that time, not a single documentary on this subject has ever been up as a distributed big screen production. Stevie Greer might rent a couple of theaters. That's happened. You rent a couple of theaters, invite people over. That's fine. I'm talking about distribution. I'm talking about 1,000 screens, 1,500 screens, right? No, not even one. And of course, the response could easily be, well, they can't make money. Nobody wants to see this stuff. Nobody wants to see, a documentary, maybe a political documentary. Really? One of the highest grossing films of all time in docs is Fahrenheit 9/11. It's grossed something like $290 million, right? And there's some others that have done extremely well, because they don't cost much. They're really cheap. You can make a hell of a doc for $10 million. You got some features out there, they spend $200 million, they lose their butt. No. Why? Simple. If they put docs up on that big screen, they are giving this issue a gravitas that is too much for the U.S. government to deal with. They don't want that. And so they sort of know, we're not going to go there, because the government could get very upset. And we like to make movies about, Tom Cruise stuff and all the, Navy and Army and everything. And we need their help. They provide planes and stuff and whatever. And so we don't piss them off. Also, in general, why poke the bear when you're making that kind of money? Let it go with the flow. It'll all come around to us, which it is now coming around to them. But all of that time, not a single dot. So you see what we've been kind of up against, okay? If the film industry won't get into it, the academia wouldn't get into it. Absolutely. John Mackey practically ran him out of town, okay? And there have been a couple of others, but that's it. Bruce Maccabee? He got 70 years, and the academics are completely, or maybe they're just going anonymous to a MUFON meeting. So the academic community abandoned us, film industry abandoned us, the government, of course, is screwing us every time it can. And that's what we were going through, getting to today, all right? So, where I'm going now, wait for it, is I happen to think disclosure, the prize of this activist movement, now 78 years on, could be within 45 days. And I'm now going to tell you, right, I'm going to try to justify it. Okay. There's a possibility that I'm wrong. I've been wrong maybe 100 times before, but this time I got a really good feeling about it, all right? We are practically there, which means that we are practically to the post-disclosure world, which means that the HDA is about to become much more important. Disclosure completely validates the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. And we're there. Nobody else is there doing what we're doing. And so I think immediately we're going to see membership go up, and we're going to see a couple of pretty heavy-duty people kind of signing on, right? And once that starts, it's going to go boom. So, post-disclosure, we could go up to 500 members, a couple of Oscar people, right? Number of actors, right? And that's a big deal. So the HDA could end up being a major force. Thank goodness. I'm glad you all are part of it, and I hope you stay part of it. And I should point out that Hollywood is into this now. They figured it out. They have joined our side, though we're not getting invited to their after Oscar parties. And what I mean by that is that, look, in just the last 3 years, what has happened? J.J. Abrams, really big guy. He's kind of an A-lister, I think. Yeah, pretty good guy. Bad Robot Productions, check him out. J.J. Abrams suddenly takes over a series called UFO, puts it out. It's a documentary series. Okay. I think it was four of them. Now, as it happens, he wasn't, the HDA, did the HDA exist at that point? I'm not sure. It's possible the HDA started a little bit after that. The point is that I knew about it, and I watched them, and they made a couple of huge mistakes. Yeah. Big mistakes. Why? Because they weren't talking to us, right? They didn't call up Richard Dolan. They didn't call me up. Yeah, we're doing a documentary, right? talk to the assistant producer. I think he read a book once, and then we'll get it out there. There's some clips, put it together. They screwed up. It's all right, JJ, I love you. Since then, he did it again. He put out another series, documentary series, called Beyond UFOs and something else, right? I haven't seen that yet. There may be a mistake, there may not be. But the point is, J.J. Abrams, 2 documentary series. And then there is the man, Steven Spielberg. Praise be God. Never did a doc on this, but boy, has he done some great stuff. Okay? Great stuff. You know all the stuff he's done? You've probably seen some of his movies 6, 7 times. He's wonderful. He's a legend. One of the most amazing things he ever did was Taken. A lot of people haven't seen that in a long time or have never seen it. Find it. It's not easy to find. They kind of buried it. 20-hour series, 10 2-hour productions. Each one had a different director. And it's about contact and what we'll call the truth embargo. I came to call the truth embargo back in 2001. That's my term, by the way. That's also capital T. I have a license. And so, wow. And that came out in 2002, late October of 2002. That's pretty cool. 20-hour series. But now, of course, it's a narrative. The contact stuff was kind of right on, but the truth embargo stuff, he had to play with it. So he made it was like a family thing. The family were responsible for it. It doesn't matter. 20 hours. You're thinking, okay, so what, Steve? Something else was going on at that time that you probably didn't know about. You see, Spielberg showed E.T. at the White House with Reagan sitting next to him, and after that movie was over, Reagan stood up and looked at Steve and said, you know, there are a number of people in this room right now that know all about that, something to that effect. Steven Spielberg has probably known E.T. President Israel for decades. In fact, you could say that about just about every major player in this country. If you're worth $5 billion, you're one of the biggest directors of all time, even a major actor, well, you're going to know. You know why you're going to know? Because people will line up outside your door to tell you, okay? Yeah, are you aware, sir, that, no, that is true. I just thought you should know, right? Yeah, get a little favor. Or they could ask. Just call up a friend of a friend. This is Steve Spielberg. Look, the E.T. thing, you know, the presence, crash tech, all that, is that true? Yeah, sure. Just don't tell anybody. They all know. And so what you need to know is these major players, including every president of the United States, and the billionaires, and major moguls in Hollywood, have known there is an E.T. presence. And they have decided to play it the way they have for a range of reasons that varies from place to place. But the sum total of all that is the truth embargo is still in place 78 years after Roswell, which was proven 8 times over. So it's amazing. It's one of the most extraordinary things that I can imagine that they were able to pull it off in a democracy, in a relatively open country. If we were a dictatorship, maybe not so much. But they did, right? And so, but in 2002, Steven Spielberg made his move. He puts out Taken, but what you may not have known is at the same time, the High Sci-Fi channel, which was connected to Taken, as part of it, they put it out, had decided that it might be a good idea to launch an organization, an activist organization to address the issue. It's kind of like a gift to the public. Watch our movie, but hey, look what we're doing here. It's called the Coalition for Freedom of Information. It had a director, it had a high-end lawyer, K Street people involved. John Podesta is the one that introduced it at the press club on October 22 of 2002. I was sitting in the front row and he said that people have the right, that should know the truth, they have a right to know, and it's the law. It's a famous clip, you can find it. It's hard to find the whole thing, and I'm sitting there going, this is big, this is absolutely huge. John Podesta had a connection to the issue going all the way back to the Clinton administration and the Rockefeller Initiative. So there was a tie-in. Sci-Fi Channel was making its move. They're putting out the Coalition for Information. And then about a week later, the Washington premiere of Taken was shown at the Reagan Building. They had waiters out there with the silver plates, gloves, white gloves on, giving out fantastic hors d'oeuvres. We watched, I think, 2 episodes of it. And this is all in the Reagan. This is 2002. Well, guess what? It didn't work, or whatever. We went back to where we were, kind of slid backwards. But the point I'm making is that just a while ago, about a year I think, Steven Spielberg for the first time did a documentary series on this subject. It's called Encounters. All right?
Called what?
Encounters. All right? So are they waking up? Yes. Are they at the point of the spear? right? Are they throwing money at this, right? You know, guys, go get them, right? Here's a couple mil. No, they're not doing that. Okay, but still. But something else just happened, which is pretty cool. Steven Spielberg a year ago announced, and this is very rare, that his next movie would be in 2026. He announced it 2 years ahead of time. When you do that, and you're a Spielberg, that's because this is going to be a big movie, right? You don't promote some small-ass movie or some rom-com you're going to do in 2 years. It's going to be huge. Took a note of that. The working title was The Dish. Okay, that's cool. What the hell does that mean? And we didn't hear much. Months and months went by. Didn't hear much at all. But about a week ago, sort of came out. One of those things, mag, one of those, that apparently some casting had started, and they settled on a name, finally, for this mega movie that's going to come out in 2026. And the name is Disclosure. That is the name of the Spielberg movie for 2026. I know, I'm waiting for the residuals, okay?